This episode is brought to you by Netflix. 3 couples, 4 vacations, a lot to unpack. Watch The 4 Seasons, a new series starring comedy favorites Tina Fey, Steve Carell, Will Forte, Coleman Domingo, and more in a hilarious and heartfelt love letter to long-term relationships. Based on the original Alan Alda film. Watch The 4 Seasons, May 1st, only on Netflix.
Parents of twins, if you're familiar with far-off drop-offs...
Dad, stop, right here.
Or get DMs about what's for dinner, you may be experiencing tween milestones. For your son or daughter, these can start at age 9. HPV vaccination, a type of cancer prevention against certain HPV-related cancers, can start then too.
For most, HPV clears on its own. But for those who don't clear the virus, it can cause certain cancers later in life.
Embrace this phase. Help protect them in the next.
Ask their doctor today about HPV vaccination. Brought to you by Merck.
Hello, you're listening to Me and Paranormal You with your host, Ryan Singer. Because it's more fun to believe. Welcome to another experience of Me and Paranormal You. This is your buddy Ryan Singer. We've got a fun show here today. I don't know where this conversation will lead us, but I assume it's going to be into the cracks and the crevices of esotericism and more. I've got Noah Niesen, who is a knight of a clandestine, esoteric, ancient kind of mystical order, and who has been cleared and is free and able to discuss all things. Now, there's also an interesting history you have here, just in life in general. And maybe at some point we can even talk about your grandfather's library, which I've seen some photos of on the Instagram, and it looks bonkers. It looks like my dream library of a house I've had. But Noah, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm honored to be here. Thank you for letting me liaison on behalf of kind of what my order does. We've been working in the shadows for a long time, and it's interesting going into the modern age. I was actually just placed in a kind of promotional position. I just got promoted to a Lord Commander position, and so it's kind of up to me to bring the order into the modern age and get us on the internet, which is an interesting process for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And especially when people hear we've been working in the shadows, people are like, oh, are they some kind of secret society, right? And there's all these connotations that go with it, especially now in nowadays. But so it is interesting to want to emerge from the shadows and actually have an online presence, right?
It's different, right? It's the guy who was running it before me. His final parting words before he went and retired was, he shook my hand and he said, "Good fucking luck, dude." And I was like, oh man, what did I get myself into? And that's, it's a lot of fun though. And you do get some pretty good luck out of it. You meet some really interesting characters along the way of doing it. And I don't know, I've had some experiences that some people would say are maybe a little out there, but you know anybody who knew me growing up, they would say that they probably track 100% of things that would happen to me. So
okay, well, tell me about growing up. I'm interested in this because you enlisted when you were 18, right?
Yep.
Walk me through this so people understand, kind of like the the foundational perspective that you have, just operating in general in life.
Yeah, absolutely. We can lore drop a little bit. So I grew up on a cattle ranch in a little town in someplace you've never heard of called Rough and Ready. It's in the Sierra Nevada mountain range of California. It's this little tiny place that nobody really knows about. My family moved there in 1852 and settled there, and we've been ranchers there ever since. So I'm the 6th generation to have lived there. My son's the 7th. Our son and daughter are the 7th generation to have been there. So we've been there. We were some of the first white settlers in that area. So we've kind of been there for the entire history of European interaction with a group of native population that lived there at the time. And there's been a lot of different interactions between, even to this day, the tribe that was active there, they still have conservation efforts that are going on. They're called the Niesen tribe, ironically. So it's interesting that, my family's last name, which is Niesen, interestingly lived pretty peacefully alongside these Niesen tribesmen for quite a while until the government came in and started messing with them more. But we're a bunch of cowboys, so we just played cowboys and Indians with our family lines over the years, and basically everyone out there is related to me in some way, shape, or form, or I'm like distant family members with everybody around there, just because it's a small community that's just been there since the gold rush days. So I came into the world, and one of my earlier memories was of sitting on my grandfather's lap, and he was reading this really big, it's an 1847 family altar Bible. It's like a big study Bible. It has some apocryphal texts in it. It's beautifully illustrated. It's just like it's a work of art in a book. And my grandfather was he was a biblical scholar for about 50 years. He was a biblical study teacher for 50 years. And he was also a Cal OSHA senior safety explosives engineer. So he knew the Bible and how to blow shit up. And that was his, he was a cowboy who was just doing the Lord's good work. So yeah, having him kind of be my primary teacher in life, I've always been kind of a weird one and difficult to handle. I don't know if we really have time to go in that direction today, but I'm kind of profoundly blind and have a interesting way that I see the world. I basically have to lucid dream when I'm awake in order to have a visual matrix.
Wow. Okay. So were you born this way?
As far as I know, this is just kind of how I've always interacted with the world. I didn't necessarily understand the mechanics of it until I didn't get a crystallized picture of the mechanics of it until fairly recently, but it has been something I've struggled to put into words. And definitely seems like a very, very different experience than most of the people around me are having. So,
yeah, well, I mean, that makes sense to me because, I mean, how are you supposed to compare it to something that you don't have awareness of?
Yeah, exactly.
Trying to just explain what
does
normal
your green
is.
look like? Yeah, who's the wise master that makes the grass green? And shout out to Robert Anton Wilson for writing Prometheus Rising.
I mean,
don't read it. If you're 13.
I read it. I don't know. I think about 5 years ago, 6, maybe. I mean, I don't know what is time, but I came into Raw late. But
I was 13 when I read Prometheus Rising, and
wow,
that's a rough book to read at 13.
I mean, that is wild. That I mean, if I would have been 13 and got my hands on that, I mean, I don't know where I'd be right now, but I would probably be. I don't even know if I'd be in physical form anymore.
I get spooked about it every now and then. There's definitely moments where I'm like, am I just going to phase out of existence right now and just completely jump into something different? It's a perilous chapel to walk into, if you will.
Yeah. Well, before we keep going with the lore drop, I want to unpack this a little bit more about being profoundly blind and people might just be wondering does this, I mean, can you get a driver's license? Can you what's the situation? People might be wondering some of those technical questions, but I think more importantly, I'm also interested in, the things that you do see in constructing this visual matrix that you spoke about. Mm-hmm. The idea that lucid dreaming while awake and that is your daytime, that is your nighttime, that is your not sleep state, is, I think, a really fascinating component and an interesting way to describe this.
Yeah. It's taken me a while to kind of put all the pieces together. Everybody's brain's unique and different. I personally am kind of trying to champion against the phrases neurodivergent and neurotypical. I think neurophenotypical is a better expression because you're your own biological unit that kind of blossoms into its own thing. I really like plants though, and I see some similarities between the two. So I don't know. I haven't ever been officially diagnosed with autism, but there are some signs. I've read through the DSM-5 a number of times, and really the only diagnoses I really maybe agree with that I have in there would be 100% sure pyromania. Which, if you're gonna have a mental illness, pyromania is the coolest of them. It's the most metal of them.
I guess as long as it's not accompanied with like,
if you don't do arson, arson's not pyromania, but like,
yeah.
Just I have a deep-seated just fucking love of fire. But like my entire like actual visual field, if I don't have kind of like the whole like projection box opened up inside my head, like it's just flames. That's all my actual like core interior like visual matrix is, and that's just there all the time, 24 hours a day. It's just like fire. And my eyes, they only really pick up like red colors. It's kind of like having like a grain of sand to look through in each of my eyeballs, and so it's just like this one kind of dot from each eye, but it also just pretty much looks like flames. Which I didn't really know how to put into words as a kid. And then like things I was experiencing, I would try to talk to people about, and they were like, "Oh, you're just lying." And I'm like, "No, it's not that. I just don't really know how to communicate this one to you." Like, this
little kid is full of shit. It is interesting that to have a different experience and to verbalize it and communicate it to people we know and people we don't know, oftentimes is met with disbelief initially, and the idea that, oh, this person is for whatever reason being deceitful to me, because there's no way we could be having different experiences.
Yeah, exactly. And like I for fun and for sport at this point, I'm looking for them at this point, but every now and then on the internet I'll come across somebody who's like claiming to be some kind of like enlightened person to some degree, or like claim some kind of like mystical specialty. And being the Lord Commander of a mystical order of knights, every now and then I'm like, smells like bullshit, might be bullshit, let's go check this thing out. Like, and man, you'd be shocked at how many of these enlightened individuals are very quick to bully somebody who's like, "Hey, I'm blind and I graduated high school with a 2.7 GPA. Could you explain this in simple English?" You'd be surprised how many people are like, "If you can't understand this, it's not for you." And I'm like, "Oh, buddy, I'm about to fuck up how math works in your head." Like, yeah, it's fun.
Well, there seems to be
distance.
Well, yeah, I mean, there seems to be this interesting idea too that, I don't know. I suppose, like, pulling this thread a little bit more, there's this phenomena that occurs, like you say, with some of these, mystical teachers, or, whatever they fancied themselves. And listen, I'm all for everyone leaning into their own thing, but to have it's not for you kind of attitude. And listen, I've been there, and I can understand it specifically with like maybe my comedy, right? Like, I'm like, you know what, if you don't get my comedy, it's not for you, right? But but it's all about the attitude that's attached to that.
Like art and initiation paths, though, of like, this is, transcendental knowledge that is theoretically attainable by anybody, but like, oh, not for you because you're, blind and too stupid to do this. And then be like, "Hey, buddy, I've read the shorter Oxford English Dictionary 6 times. I speak like 25 languages on a good day. And like, I'm about to crush your understanding of
how
what
do you
you're
have
for."
brain space for that many languages? I mean, I don't understand that. Has language always been something that you were, it just came naturally to you?
So I'm on the Myers-Briggs spectrum. I'm the INFP-T. So I have the same mental kind of design as J.R.R. Tolkien did, but he had the assertive side, and I have a T variant. So I have a turbulent aspect to it. So where the good professor himself. He's more of a like lawful good. I'm more like chaotic good incarnate in how my mind works. So I'm like an idiot. I know so little. It's just, I don't know. Like I'm blind, right? So I can close my eyes and it's just perfectly black. There is like just flames, which is for me like really meditative. Um, so just inherently, whenever I close my eyes, what I've understood, like fairly advanced Zen meditation practices are kind of looking for, that just is something that I've always been able to do just by closing my eyes at any given point. So, perks of being blind, I guess. But like I have never wanted it to stop me from being able to do anything because like I don't know, there's so much fun stuff to do in this world. Like, I don't know, driving motorcycles is super fun. Which is like crazy to think about, like, oh yeah, you're a blind kid who can ride a motorcycle. I can sword fight while riding a bicycle, actually, with a blindfold on. Yeah, the natives of Florida out here, they're like, what the fuck do we do with this guy?
I mean, I don't know how many times you're like, that's a skill set that you can actually put into use. Like, how often are you sword fighting blindfolded on a motorcycle, unless it's like a film shoot? Like,
like we all have our ways of dealing with stress and coping with the absurdity of life. And I don't know, you've never found yourself at 3 a.m. just like going back and forth up and down the street, just two-handed sword fighting while riding a bicycle? Blindfolded?
The question is, sword fighting who? The spirit and the invisible ghost, or the friend who also can do that same thing?
I don't know of any other friends of mine who are currently able to. I know. So
okay, so that answers that question.
My brother in arms, Sir Alex, who's a champ. He just got kind of a special recognition from the president of the country, actually, for our clandestine efforts, where he was named directly, and then I was named indirectly, which is nice because that means I get to be even more clandestine than Alex does. So like he gets a cool letter, but I get to stay kind of secret. So, but yeah, we just got recognized as just like not of anything like political or anything, just like hey, this is just like a tributary note of like, thanks for your guys' efforts and the things that you're doing. Because, we liaison at times and interact with government systems. We're civilians. I'm a veteran. Alex is a civilian though. But we're knighted, so we have kind of interesting sets of rules that we're allowed to do under the First Amendment, and so we can actually do quite a bit of our work just under the First Amendment, which pisses the government off, and I love every second of it.
Well, let's talk about your journey and when you enlisted, and then like the path that you wanted to take. 'Cause I think this is interesting as far as like the healing arts and things like that go. Because it seems to be like a big part of what your overall overarching like life purpose seems to be, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That seems to be the course that I am heading down. Overall, I would say I've gotten hurt a lot of times, so I've had to find creative ways to fix myself a lot of times.
And is that just a byproduct of growing up on a ranch?
Grown up on a ranch, motorcycles, cliff diving, rock climbing, backpacking, mountaineering, fighting with people who were bigger and stronger than I was, because I was kind of a small kid. But I was from rough and ready, man. Like you gotta
this is so interesting that like I was just thinking about this the other day. I was like, what if you had to be like where you lived? Right, like according to the name, because I grew up in Dayton, Ohio. So I was like, okay, so if you grow up in Dayton, that means you're just always. I mean, it's spelled differently, but it sounds the same. So it's like, oh, you're always dating, right? And so, like, the joke was like, oh man, if this was actually true, every guy I know would move to Chattahoochee. But I mean, for those who are old enough to remember the word hoochie. Anyway, yeah. So being rough and ready would be would be just that. I mean, it is interesting how we kind of grow into the thing that we are, over a bigger label of a thing, right?
Yeah, there's kind of there's kind of a meta narrative to our lives that plays out, and you can look at it backwards through history, or you can learn what retrocausality and synchronicity is, and then you can just spend the rest of your life being like, sometimes I'm going insane from all these clues the universe is giving me, and sometimes I'm still kind of going insane, but like at least I know that the universe is giving me clues, and that's kind of comforting and unsettling at the same time. But yeah, don't get into retrocausality too much, kids. You'll start doing like time travel experiments on accident. It's a weird one. But yeah, it's interesting. I have noticed a lot of overlap between synchronicity at like an individual scale and then also looking back through history. You mentioned the library that my grandfather had. So my grandfather had a library of about 50,000 books or so. A lot of Westerns, a lot of mythology and theology and religious studies books from all over the world. He loved art and architecture, and like I spent many hours in that room absorbing as much information as I could. And my grandpa was just kind of the stoic, wise, sage cowboy archetypical figure. My friends all referred to him as like the All-Father or Odin, because he just kind of, I don't know, this was his hat. So he was just kind of this like giant old man who like always had a gun on him. He had drawn like just out of the way that he was, because he was just a cowboy. He was super well trained about it from a lifetime of doing it. But like my friends and I were like making too much noise in the house at night. Like he'd come guns out, like being like, who's there? I'm like, Grandpa, it's just us. Like, and he's like, oh, okay. Like, go back to bed. And yeah, he was an incredible man, cowboy for 85 years. But he loved to read. He went to a Jesuit college, and when I was kind of young, he told me about this. Like, I was maybe 3 or 4 years old. I was out riding on the tractor with him, and we came across this rattlesnake, and it was rattling off. We were up on the tractor. We were completely safe from it, but it was like a good sized big rattlesnake, something that could, potentially kill me because I was pretty young. And he looked at me and was like, what should we do about this? Turned off the tractor, and we just sat there and listened to it rattle, and it just sat there, like pissed at us, but like not doing anything. And I asked if we should kill it, and he asked me why. I was like, well, isn't it dangerous? Like, I got a baby sister that thing can bite my baby sister, and it could bite me, and it could bite you. He's like, yeah, but it's not right now, is it? And that was an interesting moral quandary to be given at such a young age by such an old man. And yeah, we sat there listening to this rattlesnake for about a long time, and I finally said, it eats all the rats, doesn't it? And he goes, yes, it does, and that's why we're not going to kill that one. Good job, buddy. And he let me drive the tractor home. So,
oh, it's pretty cool. That's a good lesson. I think,
yeah.
I immediately remember an interaction with one of my grandpas, and when I was a little kid, it was at a family get together, and he used to make homemade ice cream.
Oh, nice.
And I mean, it's the curse of the singer side of the family to just be addicted to ice cream and milkshakes and things. And
Niesens as well. You're in good company.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like I was raised this way, and I'm like, I'm not going to fight my lineage, right? So so because of all the the sugar and the ice cream being made outside and stuff, during the summer, bees show up, and scared of bees. And my grandpa would be like, you only need to be scared of a bee if you are trying to hurt a bee. And he's like, let me show you. You don't have to be scared of these things unless you have bad intention. Basically was the message. And he just held out his hand, and he was just covered by bees. Like, not like a beekeeper, right? But, probably had like 2 or 3, 4 bees on his hand. And I was just like, oh, you're going to get stung. You got to get stung. And he's like, a bee will sting you only and its life will end if it stings you. So if a bee stings you, it thinks its life is in danger. If you don't make a bee think its life is in danger, you have nothing to worry about. It's not going to sacrifice its life just to be a bastard to you.
Yeah, exactly. They're not wasps.
Yeah, they're not. Yeah, they're where they can just bite over and over and over again. But
Yeah.
So it was an interesting lesson to learn from, someone who'd lived long enough to know, and had also just a great perspective on what to be afraid of. Right. So I feel like our grandpas were compadres in that way. The Yeah, the library looks amazing. And, before we jump into some other stuff, I want to kind of, circle back to the, I'll actually real quick. Let's take a short break here. We'll just pause for a few seconds, and we're going to have some commercials. Just as a reminder, if you'd like to listen to or watch commercial-free episodes, go to the patreon.com/Ryan Singer. $3 a month gets you no commercials at any time. We're going to be right back with Noah Niesen. We're talking about all kinds of stuff. Let's see where the journey goes.
Vacations will never be the same. Welcome to the theme parks of Universal Orlando Resort. With spectacular hotels and more, Universal Orlando offers an entire week of vacation awesome. Visit universalorlando.com.
This episode is brought to you by Principles. Ray Dalio, legendary investor and New York Times best-selling author, wants to pass along his understanding of how countries go broke, because he believes the U.S. budget and debt situation needs to be addressed. To give you that knowledge, he has put the draft of his book, How Countries Go Broke, The Big Cycle, online for free. It's available now at economicprinciples.org.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me on. This is, I was a little nervous doing this. This is my first time being a guest on a podcast. So,
Hey, well, it's going great. It's going great.
Yeah.
I think, it's, it's just, life is a conversation, right? So I'm curious about like the, the journey into, enlisting. Was it the Army?
Yeah, I was in the Army. I was a orthopedic specialist.
Okay.
Yeah, we can jump off. We can jump off from there.
Yeah, let's do that. I mean, because we're
Absolutely.
back. Let's
Perfect.
let's get into that.
Sweet. Yeah, absolutely. So, when I was 18, I joined the United States Army as a 68 Bravo orthopedic technical specialist. And frankly, there were under 150 of us when I think there were 123 of us when I entered, and there were, after 6 years, there were 69 of us left, if I remember the stats correctly. So, technically speaking, the United States military, you're in kind of a 1% of the population, is about what the numbers are that join in. It's 1 to 2% on a really, really high year. But about 1% of the population has been in the military at any given point. So within that, 68 Bravos are this tiny little fraction of the population. We specialize in orthopedic technical science and technical medicine. So your body has all these bones in it. And I'm a little rusty on my numbers. My brain doesn't track numbers particularly well for whatever reason. It just does not hold numerical values at all for very long. Just words for whatever reason. But so you have a really complex system of bones and muscles throughout your body. And, your hands, if you go through them layer by layer and kind of look at the anatomy structure of what they are, and you can do it without, actually dissecting yourself. You can just kind of feel around it, the structures of your bones and where your tendons lay. Your fingertips have thousands and thousands and thousands of nerve endings and are ridiculously sensitive to touch, right? And so as an orthopedic specialist, you need to, part of your job, kind of the primary part of your job, is you learn how to break broken bones back into place and do orthopedic surgery. And in certain contexts, I'm technically qualified and authorized in the right context and setting to make the decision to do field amputation and perform it.
Wow.
Which isn't training that everybody gets. And frankly, it's not for the faint of heart. It's kind of macabre. I didn't really realize that growing up
Yeah.
into it at all, because I grew up collecting bones and looking at dead carcasses and watching things decay on a ranch. Every now and then we'd have a deer carcass show up that got eaten by coyotes. I'd hear coyotes out there like chasing stuff in the yard. I had an encounter when I was 11. I was running around barefoot with a katana. Just that was me, barefoot in a katana with a cowboy hat, and this pack of coyotes started trailing me, and then they all took off, and I was like, "That's very strange." I was being hunted, and then they took off, and this rabid coyote charged me, and so I like smacked it with this sword that I had really hard in the face, and didn't want to kill it because I thought it was just me getting hunted still, and then I realized it was rabid. So I had this like rabid mangy coyote that I was just like beating the hell out of with a sword until it ran off. I was 11 years old when that happened, and like, I don't know, perks of living on a cattle ranch. You get to do cool shit every now and then, but
I mean, yeah, I guess our definition of cool is, some might just, you might just make a synonym with terrifying. I mean, because I wasn't a big kid.
Have much of a choice.
Well, no,
I wasn't a big kid either, but I was like, well, fuck, I'm not gonna get killed by this fucking.
But you're saying
right
cool
now.
shit. You get to do cool shit, and I'm like, it sounds like horrifying shit to me. Like,
in the moment, it was absolutely terrifying. But now that I can look back on it retrospectively, I can be like,
yes,
damn, I
we
was
can
a
now
badass 11-year-old. Like
retrospective. We can put retrospective coolness onto it. Okay,
exactly.
I can dig that. I can dig that.
It's rule number one. Rule number one is have fun and look good doing it. And so like it's something that my older brother, who was a Army Ranger, rest in peace, Maddie. But that was his like go-to saying was, have fun and look good doing it, and take your trauma and turn it into something badass that you survived. And they're like, yeah, that was actually pretty cool in the background. Like, fear is designed by nature to be conquered. Like victory awaits the victorious.
Transmutation, right? I mean, essentially, we're talking about alchemy here.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, okay, so you get in there, you're learning all of this orthopedic stuff. You're able to, under the right settings, make the call on an amputation, which I agree is that's some gruesome, speculation.
I've never had to, but the way my brain works, I sure have thought about every single way that I can cut up the human body in a medical fashion, which also, not everybody's comfortable with me having that information in my head. And like, I'm a naturopathic medicinal forensic investigator at the end of the day. I'm not I don't have the right paperwork to practice actual medicine, but, like I make my own medicine from stuff I go out into the woods and collect. This is all a bunch of plant medicine books that I have right here. The tarot deck that I use is all a bunch of mushrooms.
Let's talk about that. I've seen you. I saw that. I noticed that deck earlier, and
this one.
It almost felt like you were getting ready to do a poll on it. Let's do a 1-card poll real quick. Just do a 1-card poll. Let's see what happens.
You want me to shuffle it?
You do you. Whatever you feel.
I'll shuffle it once.
Whatever you feel like the thing is. What's the name of this deck by chance?
This is the Mushroom Hunters Tarot.
Okay. Shout out to that.
By Joe Buckley. And it is, this is the first tarot deck that I ever bought for this is the first tarot deck that was ever bought for me. So my mom bought this one for me. All the other ones I either stole or, because that's how you practice real chaos magic, kids. You got to steal your magical artifacts, but I wouldn't recommend it. Bad karma.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that is interesting though. It's cool that your mom got this for you. Oh, what do we got here?
We have the sun.
Oh, hell yeah!
Yeah, if you want, we could do something really cool, and I could just kind of keep
yes is the answer to that. All the time is yes. Answer to that.
All right, so 2 of Pentacles. What is it that you find most reasonably unreasonable about the paranormal?
Oh shit. Okay. So, okay. Reasonably unreasonable is, well, I've got this thing I'm working on, and I'm doing my first Paracon in October, where I'm actually be presenting and not like just doing comedy at it. And I'm hyper fascinated by comedy's role in the paranormal. And what I find to be reasonably unreasonable is just how damn funny it is when it appears to be the most terrifying thing ever.
Yeah.
In hindsight, you will realize it is actually hilarious. It's like supernatural jackass, right?
Yeah. So inverse the
pranked.
Empress, if you guys are tracking tarot. I'm just gonna. Do you mind if I just like read off what the cards are?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll just drop them in the middle of conversation. So just keep flowing with it, and I'll just whisper them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to me, that's like one of the things that is, I'm trying to. Which one?
Three of Swords.
Three of Swords. See, I'm rusty on my tarot. As you know, the deck I have is that I've used the most is the Lost Tarot of Nostradamus is what it's called, and they came up with their own, and so they have their own suits, right?
Yeah.
So.
Seven of Swords.
Seven of Swords. What is that indicative of? Seven of Swords.
So the way tarot works, at least in my understanding of it, is these are synchronistic, archetypical cue cards. So three of hearts representing kind of some kind of heart blockage of some kind, and given that we had the inverse Empress before it, it's kind of a soft blow. Nothing too crazy. You don't have to worry about like massive heart-shattering events that I am reading these as, at least. But so kind of coming out of the Three of Swords of like, kind of you reflecting back of like which, like comparatively, like this is my favorite tarot deck. Like, what's your favorite tarot deck? And then you kind of go through the like journey that you underwent as you learned tarot and how you picked it up and like the memories that you acquired from that. And then with the Seven of Swords, it kind of sevens a number of completion. So you kind of crystallize the thought into the deck that you pulled, saying the Nostradamus deck. And then the Ace of Swords. And on this one, it's inverted. So I don't personally tend to read inverse cards unless I get like an intuition ping to, or like one of my spirit team members are like, you should pay attention to that one, bud. But so Ace of Swords, the way that I tend to read these are directional of things that look inverse to me are coming from you, and things that look inverse from your perspective are going to you. That's just how I read it. There's not necessarily a right or wrong way to read tarot. It works for me, so I roll with it. That seems to be the way the cards fall. But so Ace of Swords, this one, if you look closely on it, it has a like paring knife carving a crown into the underside of a mushroom. So it's, if you're good enough with a sword, if you're the Ace of Swords, you might be able to carve little details for anybody who's looking for them really, really closely. Ironically, I can sword fight blindfolded, pretty accurate. I don't know if you've encountered any of the videos online of me doing that yet, but that's kind of like an interesting little skill that I've acquired. It's fun for me to do, is I can just throw a blindfold on and sword fight pretty effectively. So nice. The Ace of Swords is carving in some details. Three of Cups to you. So what do you think about all that, good sir?
Well, God, I mean, with the Three of Cups, like I said, I'm not not nearly as, trained or, intuitively hooked into the cards. At least at one point, I was pretty connected to my deck, and it's other things have kind of taken over for that for me. But I mean, I love the number three, and I'm in a 3 year right now, 48.
Nice.
So 4, 8, 12, 1, 2, 3. So I love the idea of a 3, right? And I've got a few more months in this 3 year. And as a comedian, I love the rule of 3. And I do feel like 3 is, one of the dominant numbers of my life in general. and I've always resonated with it. The little kid in me was like, oh, turn a 3 sideways and it looks like boobs, right? And it's like, stupid shit like that. Even as a kid, I was like, oh, I love 3, but the idea, the 3 of cups, I don't know what 3 is in the tarot, but I feel like that might mean, for me, the 3 of cups is feeling like, okay, I'm like 1.5 cups full right now, and like the jug is being poured, and the jug is being poured, and I do feel like there's a real heavy pour happening right now, filling me up, so to speak, with some new endeavors that I'm actually embarking on.
Yeah, interesting. As the Page of Cups comes out on that one, that you would whisper about new endeavors that are coming out.
Yeah, right. Oh, wow, that's pretty cool.
So 10 of Cups to me, it's fascinating the way that we all process information differently. And like, technically speaking, I can't actually see anything that's going on around me right now, but I can tell you that the light behind you is blue. Or at least what I would perceive is there's like some kind of blue light effect behind you. It spooked my co-host Alex a little bit on our podcast the other night. I was like, oh yeah, you have like a yellow "Don't Tread on Me" hat behind you. And he's like, no, I don't. And because we were doing like this kind of interesting, like energetic exchange of like kind of telepathic interaction. We're about 3,600 miles away from each other right now. And, putting Morse code on his palm just to kind of freak him out a little bit. And from that distance was kind of fun. But, he looked behind him and he's like, well, no, it's a cup. It's a "Don't Tread on Me" cup, but it's right where it is. It blocks your view of where all my hats are. And he's like, so it's really interesting that you can't even see that there's hats right there, and you can pick up that there's hats right there behind this cup.
Well, that reminds me of, there's this great book, Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe. And at the end of the book, he's trying to walk you through the steps for out of body experience and achieving second state. Right. And you're, I'll call it astral body, even though he would not.
I'll accept astral body. I read some Monroe, and he has some good stuff in there that I have positive experience with, but the stuff he did with the CIA, I wouldn't necessarily recommend all of it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm doing the Gateway Voyage program, which is what the program that they use for the CIA. And I'm about halfway through it. I had a pretty profound experience with it last night, but that's we don't have to get into that. But
I fully believe you on that one. Don't worry, buddy.
Yeah, and so it's what's interesting too is like the CIA kind of swallowed his program up after his death, and whether or not he even had any control over that, I'm not 100% sure. I don't know, but because it's his voice on the guided meditations on the voyage, as you probably know, and so I love this guy's voice, and
it is he does have something about his voice that's just very like, it's as far as like brainwashing programs I've gotten through, like Gateway is a pretty good gateway drug into getting into.
Yeah,
you want to go through an extreme brainwashing program, but.
I don't know if you've ever listened to Manly P. Hall lectures on like YouTube.
Oh yeah.
To me, their their voices are different, but they're the same. Like Robert Monroe is walking you through to the physical to get out of physical state, right? And then Manly P. Hall is like, the Egyptians and alchemy, ancient alchemy. And so it's like, they have a similar quality. There's something about them. Anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here, but I want to loop.
No. We're talking about retrocausality. That's like two disparate points bumping into each other. That's how synchronicity works right there. Like,
well, I can dig it. But I wanted to get into some more of this, this idea of breaking to fix. Right.
I think that's a fun one.
I think that's interesting. And, when you're talking about, enlisting in the Army as a young guy, getting into the 68 Bravo, is that what, or Bravo
68 Bravo, yeah.
68 Bravo. And then, the orthopedic forensic investigator kind of is what I think. So
more or less what I'm aiming for these days. It's kind of like,
well, I want to know what that looks like. But before we do that, we got to take one last break.
All right, perfect.
So just as a reminder, you can go over to patreon.com/Ryan Singer. $3 a month gets you no commercials ever. Go to ryansingercomedy.com. You can see tour dates all summer, middle of June through the end of July, August. I'll be out there on the road. Come see a live show. I'd love to see you out there. And we're going to be right back with Noah Niesen. We're going to talk about how you have to break something to fix it.
Impact confirmed. The Slayer has been activated.
Demonic threat level increasing.
Hold the line!
All the power of hell cowering before one man.
id Software presents Doom: The Dark Ages. Available May 15th on Xbox Series X and S, PlayStation 5, and PC. Pre-order now.
Rated M for mature.
That moment when you realize your skincare is actually working. That's Rodan & Fields, the #1 female dermatologist-founded skincare brand in the U.S. Designed by 2 dermatologists who don't just know women's skin, they know how to formulate for it. Rodan & Fields. Love what you see. Tap the banner or visit rodanandfields.com/Spotify to get your exclusive welcome offer.
And we're back. So, okay, let's get into this. Okay.
Perfect. Do you want the question that started my medical journey?
Well, sure.
So, my mom's best friend's brother is legally blind, and wasn't able to drive. Just kind of lived at home. Wasn't really able to function much. It was very debilitating for him. One of the best conversationalists I've ever met. Love the dude. But I was maybe 2 or 3 years old, and a close family friend. He was basically my uncle. So he had me hold his hand and go sit out in the night sky with him. And we were just sitting there talking, and he asked me, "How would you describe starlight to me?" He didn't realize I was blind. I also didn't really realize I was blind at the time. And so I've asked myself that question every single day of how would I describe starlight to a blind man? And eventually that morphed into stranger things have been done throughout history than blind man learning to see. That's been documented from a number of different sources. And who knows, maybe I'll figure out a way to get my friend here to be able to see, not realizing that I too was profoundly blind to a pretty high level. And I ended up kind of, I have a visual matrix to some extent of how the world around me looks, or at least what I imagine it to look like. And I did it through mostly meditation and kind of cognitively and using embodiment and practice to rewire the way that some of my brain functions work. So everything I get is from synesthesia. Are you familiar with what synesthesia is?
It's kind of like the mixing up of, results of senses. So you see sounds, you'll see a color for a sound, or you'll smell something when you hear a musical note, things like that.
Yeah, exactly. So my visual field, it looks like flames because I can really only perceive red, a couple of red hues, it seems like. It just kind of looks like what I imagine fire looks like. So if I don't kind of focus in and crystallize, it'll just kind of dissipate into flames around me, which is kind of a disorienting experience if I'm not tracking for it. But every now and then out of that, I'll get kind of profound, mental, vivid imagery. That's abstract and very tangible. And to be honest, it took me a long time to really understand if it was something that was happening kind of astrally or if it was something just within my own mind. I had a recurrent nightmare for over 20 years, starting when I was about 3 years old.
What was it?
It was kind of like Inception. I dropped into, like, if I went under certain portals or just kind of at random, I would just go into this really dark tunnel that I had to walk through this thick, heavy water that was freezing for like endlessly until my feet were bleeding. And then there was like the goddess Ishtar just like hanging out in this cave. And then she kind of like pointed at the abyss and told me to walk into it. And I did. And it was just, you wake up and you're like, like, what the fuck just happened? Like, I don't know. It's like, as an adult, I was like, man, I was kind of having like the worst mushroom trip you can imagine having at 3 years old, at like for 22 years. Like, that was fun. But I don't know. Like, if I told you I've only gone into one REM sleep cycle overall, or like one collection of REM sleep cycles this year, and have like kind of not intentionally, but just kind of inadvertently not been in REM sleep at all this year. If you were a psychologist, you'd probably be a little concerned about that.
Is this in an effort to not have this dream?
No, not at all. I haven't had it in a while, actually. And as I've gotten older, I've kind of gotten to understand the kind of deeper meaning of this, and kind of like the archetypical sub patterns and like the inner kind of familiar mythiopoetic story that I just have as an accounting of my family's place within humanity writ large, which kind of also includes a lot of stuff that humanity writ large has done to various different degrees. I don't know. I've always been curious about how the world looks through everybody else's eyes. So I like studying stuff, and it's taken me to some strange facets of humanity, and things that are outside of humanity. But that kind of inspired me to get into medicine. I was 4 years old when I broke my collarbone, and I fell off the local merry-go-round and got trampled by all the kids on there, shattered my this right clavicle right here, had to go into a brace for 8 or 9 weeks or so. And it hurt. It was not pleasant. It was actually scarier getting trampled by a bunch of kids than it was actually like breaking my collarbone at all. But since then, I've broken 45 more bones, and I've had 13 traumatic brain injuries. So, perks of being blind, you just kind of get hurt a lot because you can't really see what you're doing. So, cliff diving, motorcycle riding, mountaineering, I've fallen and gotten hurt a number of times. So I joined the military at 18. I didn't necessarily, at a kind of a gentleman's code about not necessarily telling them everything that's ever happened to you so that you can actually get in and serve your country. Just discretionary with the Fifth Amendment, you're good. But didn't really reveal to them that, like, hey, by the way, I'm technically kind of super blind, but I don't really know how to talk about it. And also I've had a bunch of broken bones that I didn't go to the hospital for because I didn't want my parents to find out. And like, I didn't tell them I got a ricochet gunshot wound when I was 12 years old because I was out being stupid by myself in the woods and accidentally caught myself with a negligent discharge. Only one I've ever had in my life. Shot myself with it. That's rough odds. But so I've gotten hurt a whole bunch of times throughout my life. And my parents, like, my name is Noah Niesen. In the Army, one of my drill sergeants came up behind me and was like, both your parents have done acid, haven't they? It's like, well, drill sergeant, like, it's interesting that you would know that. But yes, they have. And yep. My parents are hippies. Like, I Snoop Dogg buys weed from my neighbor. My dad is, he runs a like hemp smoking lounge in Texas called Reggie and Dro. So if you happen to be in San Antonio, go check it out. It's really cool. My mom is a hypnotherapist. Last night she was like swallowing fire. I saw a video of her on Instagram pop up where she was just like swallowing like a flaming ball of fire, and I was like, that's my mom. Like, she's fucking
This
cool
is the woman who bought me
like,
my first tarot deck.
Yeah, this woman
tracks.
who's like, yep, tracks that I'm her kid, tracks that I'm my dad's kid. But yeah, I mean, I joined the Army, and then I was really, really good at being a soldier. I was on track to go to Ranger School in RASP and go become a Special Forces medic. And then I went on a backpacking trip, and I had a really rough backpacking trip. I went to go hike the John Muir Trail by myself. I had 3 other people who were supposed to go and do it with me, and they all had valid reasons to cancel. And I was like, well, I want to do this because I don't really know when I'm going to be able to again. So I went solo for that one, which I've done backpacking solo trips. That was the John Muir Trail is, I think, 232 miles or so, something around there. So that's kind of a long backpacking trip to do by yourself. But I had done 500 plus mile long trips before, so I wasn't that worried about it. So I set out, and my mom ended up dropping me off down in Yosemite. Blitzed across the beautiful Yosemite Canyon floor, nice and low, from the beginning of the trailhead. And then I had been at sea level for most of my Army training. I had been at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, and then I went to Fort Sam Houston in Texas, in San Antonio. And then I went to, I don't know if they just changed the name on it or something, but Fort Benning in Georgia.
Oh yeah, they did. So, I believe they did, because that's not too far. I've gone through there a ton of times recently when I make trips through there. I forget what they changed the name to, but yeah, gotcha.
I think they changed it to like Liberty or something. I don't know.
They've got all those statues, and
happy about it.
They got all those statues down there. Like on
there's like
on the freeway, right? Like, or it's all that like architecture and stuff. So it's an interesting drive through there.
It's a complicated one, because like the infantry is housed out of there. So like the infantry, they're warriors of the highest order, more or less, in this country. And they have at least the best of them that I know, they have this very mutual respect of like warrior to warrior, like, oh, you're going to try to kill me as good as you're going to try to put in more effort than I am to kill me, huh? That's commendable. I respect it. It's kind of a weird thing to be like, oh yeah, real recognizes real. Like, you're going to fight me as hard I'm going to fight you. Like, fuck yeah, dude. It's going to be epic. Not everybody understands that one, but there's kind of a, camaraderie between peoples who are trying to kill each other that's just difficult to really explain unless you're like that. But so I went on this backpacking trip, hadn't factored in that I was at sea level pretty much all year, and was going at my like normal backpacking pace, which I can put in 50 miles in a day pretty easily if I wanted to. At least at the time I could. And so I did. I went all the way up to the top of Donahue Pass, which is, I want to say, 11,367 feet, maybe, something around there. I'm not good with numbers, so. And I got altitude sickness super fucking bad. I was like, so I normally kind of hallucinate and have a lot of synesthesia going on, so I kind of always have like strange hallucinations that are going on throughout my body that are like tangible, and like I feel them in my body and I hear them and like have them in my visual field. This was something different than that. It was like the worst psychedelic trip that you could imagine. I ended up being like in this hallucinative, like bad trip state for 36 hours straight. I was not able to keep water down. I would just, if I tried to drink water, I would just puke. By the end of the trip, I had cyanosis coming up my limbs, on my arms and my legs, which is where your body starts to turn blue from not getting enough oxygen circulation throughout your body. Not a fun hike, to say the least. But Before it got super, super bad, I got up to the top of Donahue Pass and I called my mom, who was like just getting home from dropping me off that morning. And I was like, hey, I'm pretty sure I have altitude sickness. Like, I need you to turn back around. And I had a map with me. So, like, deliriously, I was like, I know this area somewhat goodish. And I was like, Silver Lake. I know how to get to Silver Lake. And that's the closest place that I can actually walk to right now. So, plotted out some land nav to Silver Lake. It was 27 miles away from me. As the crow flies. And so I coordinated with my mom. I was like, hey, if I'm not at Silver Lake in 24 hours, like, send out a chopper and a rescue team, and like I'll see you there. And so she was like, that sucks. So
that's not a sentence you want to hear from your son. If I'm not, send out a chopper and a rescue team. Yeah, that's terrifying.
I mean, she grew up watching me acquire 46 broken bones and 13 TBI to some extent or another. So, like, she knew I was doing something that I've talked to her about it since. And she's like, every single time I've let you go and do something, like join the military or like, go jump off cliffs for a week in the woods with a bunch of people that, like, I'm not there for. Like, she kind of always had this understanding of, like, you're definitely just a wild child and you're going to do it no matter what. So might as well, make peace about it and have fun with it. And, she also kind of grew up. She grew up in the same neck of the woods. We've just all kind of been doing it. And, like, I don't know, we're wild people out there. And so, yeah, ended up, like, just getting more and more delirious. The, like, astral cryptid, like, mythiopoetic, like, culmination of, like, just things that I'd read about 70,000 books or so at that point.
Wait, what? How does a person have this much time in their life to read 70,000 books? I mean, okay, so at this point,
really
how old are you at this point?
I just turned 20. This was on September 11th, 2019 that all this was going down. This was my "where were you on 9/11" moment.
So you're averaging 3,000 books a year, or roughly, at this point in your life, your reading life?
Not my whole life, but once I really started to get good at using the internet, I don't have to read them the same way that other people do necessarily. And so I can kind of read books in a way that wouldn't really sound like I'm making it up, but like I kind of hear them,
like an absorption of them.
It's kind of like a slow absorption in them. So kind of the longer I'm around, like, large groups of books, I just kind of like, it's kind of like schizophrenia from a library. But, like, it's kind of cool, I guess. It's spooky as all hell sometimes, because, like, every now and then, like, I'll just, like, I don't know, I do it with this is just how I interact with the world. So, like, everything's talking to me all the time because that's how I interact with stuff. But, like, man, some things have some strange things to say, indeed. Yeah, so, like, all of my kind of collective layers of consciousness were in, like, hyper survival mode to a level that they'd just never been at before. And, like, my stubborn ass was like, must keep walking, must get to light. And so, like, I just kept going. Which, honestly, I probably should have just, like, called it a chopper. I don't know why I'm like this. This is just, I'm just built that way for whatever reason. Retrograde Chiron ascendant is what it is. And so I just kept walking and, like, just kept marching. Like, I ended up collapsing into, like, a dry lake bed. Didn't notice that there was a black bear next to me, like 10 feet away from me. It just looked at me and was like, what the fuck are you? Like, it just didn't know how to respond to me. And so it just sat there. I was trying to drink just, like, unfiltered water out of this, like, kind of dried up pond that I had found because I needed fluid inside my body, or I was going to just I'd stopped sweating at that point. It's just not a good place that you want to be in. I was about 5 miles out, I had gotten some cell service. So my mom was on the phone with me. And so she was kind of having some health problems of her own. So like, she wasn't in a condition that she was even able to like come up the trail or anything. But like, it was just comforting knowing like, oh, like, okay, my mom's 7 miles out, like, cool. And so like, it kind of gave me a little bit of like, I got IV bags in the car. I got, lots of Pedialyte, and like, if I make it to this car, I'm gonna survive this. And so I was about 5 miles out, going down some switchbacks, and my right foot just got caught on something. And it just like got pinned, and I had about 65 pounds in my backpack, and it just spun off the side of the switchback, and my knee just twisted and popped really loudly. It was, I don't know if I would call it a true dislocation, but it was subluxated very uncomfortably, that's for sure. It was still technically in socket, but it was like just twisted in a direction that it was not supposed to be twisting. It was not a very pleasant experience. That one was probably the most painful thing that had ever happened to me. I ended up tearing my meniscus, and had a slight patellar tear, and an IT band tear, and then just sprained every piece of connective ligament tissue inside of my knee.
So you fucked your knee up, is what you're saying?
Yep.
Did you fall down the side or something, or what happened there?
Oh yeah, that was the easy part of that one, actually. So I got dislodged from that. My foot finally released after my knee subluxed, and then I had 65 pounds of backpack on, which makes you kind of bottom heavy when you go head first off a mountain. And so I dropped like 30 feet, just like donk onto my head, and just hit the ground. My mom was on the phone with me when I did that. And so for me, I had this really interesting near-death experience. And for my mom, it occurred in less than a minute. And for me, like, it was like meeting God, man. Like it was like living tens of thousands of generations of like human experience and knowledge from just every single different angle and possibility. And like, it was like, I don't know, it was almost like accessing like the entirety of like human genetic memory, and just watching all the like bloodshed and violence and creativity and art and like love for each other that it's like gotten to take us here, across just so many cultures. My brain kind of starts to short circuit a little bit if I start to get too deep into it. It's just so like beyond anything I could put into words. And I felt myself kind of like being like, all right, good job. You hit the finish line, dude. Like, yep, we'll check your ticket now. And like, you're just going to kind of float up. And I was like, okay, like that, I guess that makes sense. Like, I pretty much just, should be dead right now. Like, I just fell 30 feet onto my head. And I heard my mom, and I heard another girl's voice. And like, this other girl's voice kind of like pulled me like back in a way. It kind of like jolted me back. And kind of like made me realize, like, wait a second, like, I'm 20 years old. I don't want to hit enlightenment and die with it. Like, what the hell? That's like a total ripoff. And also, like, my older brother passed away before I was born, so I was like, I can't let my mom lose another child with me on the phone with her. Like, that's fucked up, man. And so I just was kind of like, nah, fuck this. I'm not out of here yet. Like, I'm going back. And so I don't know, I shot back into my body, and just, that was the most painful experience I have ever had. Every single nociceptor in my body, it was like getting struck with all the electricity that like I still just feel a lot of like electrical current in my body at all times over 5.5 years since it's happened. Which is just, it's a level of pain that I just have to live with and take care of myself to be able to function with. But I mean, that really kind of supercharged my desire to be good at medicine. it was kind of mind shattering for me though. Like the next 5 years, I met a beautiful young lady who we ended up starting a family together, and we were very young when we did that. I met her about 2 months to the day after that near-death experience happened, and I didn't integrate that the way that I needed to. I also didn't really know how to do that at the time, and I had kind of like just shut out most of what had gone on for that one. It just, I don't know. It's only been till fairly recently that I've even been able to like speak about it out loud. It just, I don't know. If you've gone through weird experiences like that, it could take some processing time. But yeah, after that, this girl and I, we got together, and then COVID started. And so I was a soldier in the reserves and went into this like weird purgatory state because my MOS got sunset and it wasn't an MOS in the Army anymore. I couldn't enlist. I couldn't get promoted. That's what it is. So I was stuck at a specialist, even though I was sergeant promotable for like 4 years. Never got my stripes, which I was always a little bit bummed about, but hey, E4 Mafia for life, I guess. Yeah, didn't get to go to Ranger School, didn't get to go Special Forces. COVID hit the military with a level of bureaucratic horse shit that cost me my career. But you know, that's ultimately how I ended up serving in the military. Was I took my gifts of being able to write fairly well and made some noise about some illegal orders that our troops were getting that was not really clearly broadcast to the public, or it was just an abuse of power on the way that they were doing it. They were sneaky about it, and I picked up on it and was like, absolutely not. So I spent most of my service kind of in the danger zone of like, most of my chain of command wasn't happy with me because I was being a problem soldier for being like, you guys are doing this wrong, and I'd be willing to comply with this if you did it right, but you guys are doing it in the like dumbest, shittiest, most illegal way that you can right now. So if nobody else is going to hold the line, I will. And you know, I love all the people that I served with. I'd kill and die for them still. But it was interesting to see mass level like social dynamics sway even the military. Like I'm very apolitical. I may be the only true libertarian in the world as far as I'm concerned, because that's the only way that you win arguments with libertarians.
Noah, I gotta let me hit the pause button here real quick because unfortunately we're out of time here. I gotta.
Bummer.
So I want to put a button on this real quick. My takeaway here right now is that a profound near-death experience leads to a realization of the totality of everything on the entirety of the human experiential spectrum, right? Of art, war, death, love, etc. It's like a sensation that was all enveloping, which you often hear with NDEs. You don't want to leave it, and then something happens and you realize not yet. You shoot back into your body, and welcome back to the pain show. So welcome back to the fucking
so nice.
welcome back to the pain show. And so so it makes sense to me why you're drawn to the healing and the naturopathic holistic homeopathic path in that way. It's really fascinating. I appreciate you sharing with us. Now, can you tell us where so the podcast is what? Reasonably Unreasonable.
Yep, Reasonably Unreasonable. We're on YouTube and Spotify right now. We've been having Fae tech support, which is a whole other topic of paranormal activities, fairies, and technology. But we did an angelology series, a 3-part angelology series, and so ever since we started that one, oh boy, things have gotten real interesting. So if you guys want to come join our grift, we're on Spotify and YouTube. We're working on getting our digital space set up properly. We're doing it live, so we're having fun with it and just trying to get content out as fast as we can. And we're I think it's going to be quite a bit of fun. If you want to come join us along for this, Alex is a champ. He's hilarious. He's super, super smart. He's actually the one who knighted me. So we've been knights together for over a decade now. And so, I mean, it's just, me and my blood brother basically just like goofing around. We're huge nerds, and we, are willing to talk about any topic. So
cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's rad. Well, I appreciate you jumping on today, buddy.
Absolutely.
Good to digitally meet you, and
you as well.
And good luck with the show and everything else. And we'll have to follow up here sometime in the future, and catch up and see what other crazy shit.
Oh yeah.
Into. But in the meantime, follow him. Go over there and check out the podcast.
Yeah. If you want to see me post strange esoteric nonsense and mess with the magicians and be really, really, really autistic on the internet, you can follow me at DefaFed69, and it's always a good time. It's fun.
All
Shit
right.
posting for a Knight's Order. That's kind of one of my official positions, and we got some good memes in the order.
That's the first time I've ever heard that sentence put together out loud. Shit posting for the Knight's Order.
Gotta do what you love.
It's a brave new world, my friend.
It very much is.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you, buddy.
80s, but better.
Yeah, and just a reminder to everybody listening and or watching, the podcast is now video style. So RyanSingerComedy.com. I got big announcements coming up soon. We can't make them yet, but we will, I promise. Soon, come see me on tour. RyanSingerComedy.com's got all the info and all that good stuff. So thanks again for watching and or listening. And if I don't see you at a live show, I'll just end up seeing you at the watering hole on the astral plane.